Welcome to Project 981 and welcome back to what is episode 2 of my hacks, hints and tips about the Boxster Caymans and 911s, roughly 2005-2015. But if you've seen the first video, you'll know what I'm on about and you'll know what's in store for the second one. Don't worry, it's a lint-free jumper. Let's get stuck in. We finished around about the 20 mark. I've got another 12 or 13 or so with a few bonus items. We're going to start with some PCM bits and pieces and then do a little bit of tiny bit of driving towards the end. But I hope you've enjoyed the first video. The link will be somewhere and we'll make a start on the second. So part 2 of hacks, hints and tips. Off we go. Number 21. So this is about PCM. We're going to do a little section on PCM, Porsche Communication Management. It's a computer, it sits in the dash, and as with all computers, it helps us to be able to reboot or turn them off and on again every now and then. To be honest, it's pretty stable, but knowing how to do it is useful. So go to the car menu. There it is. And basically just press and hold for 10 seconds the info button, and this will literally reboot the computer, and you'll know you've done it because after 10 seconds you'll get a special screen. It's the Porsche crest, and that is the system booting up. It's quite a nice graphic actually, isn't it? Reminds you what car you've bought, and it'll eventually repopulate all the various menus. It'll find the iPod, it'll just get itself sorted out. So if you need to reboot for whatever reason, if your PCM's having a hissy fit, press and hold the info button for 10 seconds and it'll do that for you. Okay, so sometimes it helps to know what the firmware and version numbers are of your PCM, and we can do that with a sort of semi-hidden menu. The way to do that is to hold down 2 buttons simultaneously. We need to hold down source and info. If we press those together, we get a sub-menu. There it is, where you can see the PCM software version number 4.76, which I believe is the latest available for this version, which is 3.1. And then you can go into the current system and it shows you the various updates and the like that have been applied to your PCM. So you press and hold source and info and that menu comes up to look at your version numbers. So sticking with PCM for the moment, and it's number 23 in the list. Can we turn the screen off? Yes, we can. So you might be driving along at night and you don't want the distraction of the screen on. Maybe during the day you don't want the distraction of the screen on. There's no obvious off button, in the same way there's no obvious off button for the heating and ventilation, but you can do it. Here's how. Go to the car menu, which we're in, select option, scroll down to PCM system, click on that. Click on display PCM, click on screen, and lo and behold, switch off display. Click on that, and then yes again, click on confirm, and the screen will go off. Happy days. Now, cleverly, because that's a lot of clicks, we don't have to do that every single time. So if you wanted to change your media source, for the sake of argument, press the source button, that just turns the screen back on. Now we go to source again. We can change from iPod to jukebox using the correct button for the sake of argument, so I'll do that. And then it'll default back to the off screen. So then we just do 1 and 2, and having changed our source, or look to the map or check something else, it will go off again. So once you've done it once with the ignition on, it'll keep that sort of sub-menu setting and we can just go back to the display off nice and easily. So staying with PCM very briefly, a couple more things. The mute button, you probably know this one, but we've got some lovely Queen playing. Then we're going to get some massive copyright issues. So just press to mute, and that is how you mute. And I'll mute the marvellous Mr. Frederick Mercury. Now, if you've muted Freddie and you want the radio or Freddie or anything else to stay off when you turn the car off and then turn it back on again. In other words, if you want the PCM to not be on when you turn the car on, you need to turn the PCM off. the way to do that, we've already muted, so basically playing music, mute it. If you want to mute next time, we need to turn the unit off as opposed to reboot it. So to do that, you just simply press and hold, and that's it. That's the PCM off. If we then dump the ignition, again, excuse the focus, take the key out, like that, and put the key back in and turn it on. I need to service my car. PCM doesn't come on, and so the radio doesn't come on, and we don't hear Freddie's glorious tones. So the answer here is, if you want to keep the radio off when you start the car, turn the PCM off when you leave the car. Now, we talked about muting and music and PCM, and it's worth just saying that there's one other thing to know about your car, which you may have discovered or may not. In the glove box, depending on what the first owner specifies, there should be a sort of upgraded, uprated media input slot, 3.5mm USB, and that allows you to add, in my case, a good old-fashioned iPod. Here's my iPod with a slightly longer cable necessary, and that means I can play lovely music through the, hang on about, doing it with one hand. You know what an iPod looks like. This one's black, that's why you can't see it. That sits in there quite happily, and I can select that as a source in the PCM, and that plays really quite well. So don't overlook that. And also, if you've, again, if the first owner specified the Bluetooth package with the preparation for phone, then you can plug your phone in. Well, you don't have to plug your phone in at all, but it might help to plug your phone in to get some power. But you can just put the Bluetooth on your phone and that'll appear on the PCM, and you can then stream from that as a source too. So despite not having CarPlay, actually PCM 3.1, yeah, plenty of options to take your music with you and your podcasts and what have you, even if you don't bother with the jukebox, which is a bit hit and miss. Anyway, glove box, USB, podcasts, brilliant. So one final PCM little hint and tip for this section, and it's adjusting your headlights for driving on the continent. So this is something that is uniquely a British thing, really. The Brits driving on the left and having the ability to easily hop over to France, Belgium, the Netherlands and other countries to drive on the right. And to do that, we need to adjust the side that the dipped beam is dipped. Get the PCM up, go to car, go to option, come down to set car, come down to vehicle functions, go to lighting and visibility, go to exterior lights, and then left right driving, and standard is the correct setting for your country. So I live in the United Kingdom. Standard means the dip is on the left, but if you select the menu option, you can invert it, which is to say point them on the right hand side. Now, I'm not going to do this because I don't need to, but there it is. That's how it works. The car doesn't know which country you're in. It won't automatically change them, but you can just toggle that across easily enough. And you can actually do it from the same lighting menu in the dashboard too. But the point is, you can do it, and if you're traveling on the continent for a little road trip, that's the way to do it. So a quick clarification, this adjustment of the dip via the PCM is only applicable, I think, to the xenon headlights. If your car has got the standard halogen bulb set up, you can adjust the dip, but it needs to be done manually on the lamp unit. Best in this case to check the handbook. So number 28, when you're above 10 miles an hour or so, to open the roof you don't need to hold on to the button, you just need to lift it once, like this. And Porsche has figured out that you need to keep your hands on the steering wheel while it lowers the roof for you and pops the windows back up. And with those windows up and the roof down, we can turn the air conditioning off, make sure our sports exhaust is on, and enjoy some top-down motoring. Lovely. Number 29 is a little tip about rev matching or auto blip, and I've covered this in a previous video celebrating the Boxsters many buttons, but I want to just quickly demonstrate it, and I'm hoping I've got enough cameras running to do that, but we can hear it too. Now the tip is, when you're in Sport Plus, the car will auto blip for you. So changing up, doesn't do anything changing up. But if I want to change down to first gear, it'll auto blip for me. There we go. I don't need to rev match, the car will do it for me. Second, third gear, down into second, clutch in, and it matches the revs. That's lovely. But if you're a keen driver, you might like to do that yourself. You might like to heel and toe, trail brake, all those different combinations. And there's a way you can do that. So here it is. Leave the car in Sport Plus, but turn off PSM. To do that, we have to press and hold the button for a short period. Now, PSM is off. If I change up into third gear now and try and change down, there's no auto blip. I have to rev match myself. So PSM off in Sport Plus disables auto blip, rev match. Third gear down to second, that's me doing that. Up to third, up to fourth, or I should say up to fourth now. Into third, that's me doing that. Into second, oh, somewhere. That's me doing that too. So quick reminder, Sport Plus rev match is enabled as a matter of course unless you turn PSM off, and if you turn PSM off it disables rev match and you have to do it yourself like that. But if I turn PSM back on, the dashboard reminder goes off into third, just by way of example. The car will now rev match when I change down. And what a lovely rev match it is too. So there we go folks, rev match on and off with PSM. So we're almost there. Number 30, checking your oil, and particularly making sure the car is level and flat. So I'm back on the driveway. I want to check the oil. Now the handbook says you need to get the car as flat as possible. Well, it doesn't say that, but what we know is you need to get it as flat as possible, turn the engine off, and then wait for a minute or so for the oil to sink back down into the sump where the measurement is made. So let's do that. We can use the Sport Chrono timer, which is largely all it's good for, to do that. So I'm going to turn the engine off now. I'm going to keep an eye on that, and then what we need to do is make sure the ignition's still on, and then coming up to about 20 seconds, car in gear for good measure. Now I can see at this point I've got 90 degree coolant temperature, 90 degree oil temperature, which is at or thereabouts what I'd expect after the sort of drive I've just done. Coming up to about 45-50 seconds. So let's go into the menu here, down to oil measurement, push away, and the car's happy to give me a measurement, and happily we've got all the greens, so neither underfilled nor overfilled. The key thing to take away from this is not only that little 90-second, 60-second delay, but the car needs to be flat, and I think it'll tell you if it's not happy to give you a reading if it's on the wonk. Flat and level, 60 seconds, all the greens, happy days. So we're almost done, number 31. And this is perhaps a little more esoteric, but it's worth knowing. So my car has the HID xenon lights, which is basically that thing there, and it has a dipped function, which a little shutter comes down and goes up to go from full beam to dipped. But here's the thing, there's a second bulb underneath, and actually Porsche cleverly have added a second full beam when you go to full power. So when you go to full headlights, what happens is the shutter opens the HID, but it also turns on this bulb. And the reason for mentioning that is because that bulb is a normal filament bulb and it can fail, and you'd probably fail your MOT. So it's worth knowing that there's a second bulb in there, and that means you can then check it ahead of an MOT. That's the annual safety test in the UK. And if you're really bothered about colour temperature, you could tinker around with the bulb colour temperature on that too. Anyway, there we go. That is your second bulb for full beam on the Boxster Cayman. And we've made it, number 32. Last but not least, and no video about Boxsters, Caymans or indeed 911s would be complete without mention of the radiator in the front, the air conditioning condensers and the radiators behind them. Here we are on the GTS's one. The grille is different, but the effect is the same. And the reason for mentioning it is because we have to make sure we get all the gunk out from behind and down and in. And I can't get my camera in there, but what you need to know is that dirt, and typically this time of year in the UK, straw from the harvest gets in here and gets in the corners, and if you leave it long enough it'll accumulate, it'll start rotting, and when it starts rotting it'll start corroding and eventually damage the condenser. So every now and then, I do it sort of once a month, by and large, get a good look in here. If you need a torch, have a good look, and then also get the hoover in there, the vacuum, and just suck it all out, which is a very odd little job to do in your car, but there we go. It's important to do both sides, and also the GTS has a centre oil cooler too, so checking that one. Mine are in reasonably good condition, but you can see the problem, and yeah, it's worth doing. Can I get the camera in there? A little bit. Anyway, check those condensers, people, because that's where problems can lie. Now we're pretty much done and dusted, but I thought it worth saying that pretty much everything I've covered in these two hacks, hints and tips videos do actually come from and are included in the manual. Funnily enough, here's mine. So if at the end of the day you're still not sure what that feature or setting was, do dig out your manual, have a look. I can't claim credit for discovering these things. Most of them are written down handily by Porsche in the book. Here's the last one. I keep mine in the car because it is quite useful to be able to refer to it, but I don't want it knackered, so I put it in a little plastic pouch, goes in the glove box, and I can then check those hints and tips whenever I have an idle moment. So there we go, folks. That is it. That's all I've got for you for this two-parter on hacks, hints and tips of living with your Boxster, Cayman and 911. I hope you found some new material in there, things you perhaps didn't know, or thinking, oh, maybe I'll go back and look at that now I've heard about it and understand what it means. And most of the stuff that we've covered is applicable not just to the Boxster, but the 981, Cayman, 991, 911, and actually some of the early models too. If you've liked the video, do give me a thumbs up. It's always appreciated. I'm hoping we might get some good comments, maybe some things I've missed. I can then perhaps crowdsource enough for a third video in this series. So do jump in if I've overlooked anything, and now would be a good time to subscribe to the channel too, in case that third video does get made, alongside some other bits and pieces coming up in the months ahead. But until then, and as always, thank you for watching. I've really enjoyed making this video and I hope you found it useful too, and I'll see you for the next one.